Welcome to Season 3 of the Knack for Business podcast. Over 300 episodes strong, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit with fresh insights, networking gems, and creative strategies that elevate your game. Are you ready to discover what your Knack for Business truly is? Your hosts are Bernie Franzgrode from Creative Insight and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc.
Today's topic is, are beliefs blocking your success? So, from an audience perspective, why do you keep hitting the same roadblocks in your business no matter what strategies you try? That's what our guest is all about. Let me introduce Judy Kane from Aligned Consciousness. Judy helps you identify and transform limiting beliefs that keep you or your client stuck. These changes help your subconscious mind support your conscious goals. She also hosts workshops and presents in group sessions, conferences, retreats, and podcasts. A native of Richmond, Virginia, her household usually includes a rescued cat, a dog or two. She's the author of Your Four Truths, all one word with the number 4 in the middle, How Beliefs Impact Your Life. Judy, welcome. What is your favorite quote or saying, ma'am?
I'm glad to be here. Thank you. And it's attributed to Henry Ford, and it's basically whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
Good one. The expert, hard at work. So, subconscious beliefs. In the past, I've heard people like, if you think you can't. How ingrained is that? How does that permeate through your actions in life?
It's interesting. We get most of them on the subconscious beliefs by the time we're 7 years old. We're just little sponges. We're building our default system for interpreting events and people and ourselves. Beliefs are there unless you're consciously trying to do something different. It's powerful. It impacts about 95% of what we do.
Wow. So, what are the beliefs that are holding people back that you've seen?
A lot of times I'll see things, I frequently work with business owners. They will come to me because they're frustrated. They're doing all the right things and nothing is changing in their business and their profit level. They're frustrated. They've tried it all and nothing's working. Frequently what it will come back to, it could be a fear of success. And that could be for several reasons. It could be related to conflicting money beliefs. It could be a belief that it's going to cost too much to be successful in terms of you have to work really hard and maybe they don't want to work 24/7. Or it could be a fear of being visible. It could be a fear of failure and not wanting to take the risk and take a chance that it won't work. And imposter syndrome, of course. People don't think that they are qualified to be successful or to try the thing that they've been thinking of.
Imagine the fear of being visible. Unpack that. That's interesting.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of children, it's physically not safe to be seen or heard in their home when they're little. And then for other children, it's maybe they just weren't valued or their ideas and opinions were not paid attention to. Sometimes it can be a one-off experience in their background where something traumatic happened in school, right? They were called on and gave an answer and people laughed and it could have been enough to keep them from putting their hand up again. But so I've seen this happen a lot of times where they need to get out there. If they want their business to be successful, they need to be heard, they need to be seen, and yet they might be reluctant to express themselves, go out there on social media or stand up in front of a group. And they're not going to be very successful if they can't show people what they can do.
It almost sounds like an entrepreneur, the fear of getting on the horse. That first moment is, wow, I've done it. But to sustain it, in other words, if you're going to use the horsebacking riding example, but to go on a 20-mile journey on a horseback, that's a different story than just going trotting around the field for an hour, if that long. How do you keep that consciousness going, yeah, I can do it, like the little steam engine can do it, I can do it? How do you keep that motivation running?
Great question. I don't think you have to keep the push on like you do to start the thing. I think there's a muscle you build that builds the confidence and builds the effectiveness. That said, I think a lot of people aren't doing work that inspires them. And if that's the case, you're going to have to do that pep talk all the time. If you're doing something that pulls you in, that motivates you, that is exciting, that you feel is worthwhile and fulfilling, you don't need that pep talk.
It's true. Would you say then it's one thing to have that internal dialogue going, you can do it, you can do it. But who do you surround yourself with? Because sometimes it's an internal dialogue and sometimes it's an external dialogue you're going to have with other people.
Yeah.
How do you frame that? How do you shape that?
First of all, surround yourself with people that encourage you to grow and are cheerleaders for you, as opposed to the people who are constant critics. And that includes yourself, right? It's you look for patterns, you look for opportunities. It's you want to have the kindest feedback for yourself, the most encouraging feedback that you can do. And so a lot of times you have to take a look at what you're saying. Is it accurate, right? A lot of times the stuff people say to themselves is really cruel. and
You know,
and it's not accurate either, right? Paying attention to that and looking at the people you surround yourself with, you want them to be people that have similar goals and or have some level of success, right? So that you can encourage each other. Have much to do
clues.
with the subconscious beliefs. That's just a practical look at your friends. Not who you want to be, and maybe you should reconsider.
Is that the adage of birds of a feather?
To some extent, yeah. If you've got people that are constantly looking at the worst possible situation in a situation and that are negative, those are not going to be inspiring people. They're going to make you feel slowed down and sad and ineffective. Right? So yeah, you want the people with the energy, with the hope, with the inspiration for themselves.
So, what are the clues for knowing someone is stuck in a negative mindset or an abundant mindset? And how long does it take to actually reset that if they're willing?
I always advise people because they say, how do I know if it's subconscious beliefs or something else? And so you look for the patterns. If you have a pattern of your business dealings always going a certain way, or a pattern of certain relationships always ending up with you in the same position, that's a really good clue that you've got subconscious beliefs that are helping create the situation. And in terms of changing it, one of the first things I do when I talk with people is ask them, what would you rather be experiencing? You've got this issue, want it to be different. What is it you want? And frequently they will talk about what they are trying to avoid as opposed to what they really want. This ties back to that inspiration and doing something that resonates with you. We have to talk about what is it that they want to see happening in their lives? What do they want to be experiencing? And once they can identify that, then we start trying to figure out what are the actual beliefs that need to change in order to support this outcome that you want. In terms of how long does it take to change it, sometimes people can do this at home. I will probably get into that a little later with this conversation. But there are lots of people out there that can help people change subconscious beliefs. The process that I personally use is very fast change process. You can usually change any one belief in less than 5 minutes. Now how many beliefs are creating the situation? I can't predict that. But for any one belief, it's pretty straightforward process to change it.
What are the red flags that are free for if you're sitting there going, do I got it right? Or versus you're looking at a person from the outside. What are the flags that they can self-identify or you would identify to say, hey, listen, you're shooting yourself in the foot?
Those patterns I was talking about are a real good clue. But take a look. If you're constantly feeling stressed out, or if certain activities or relationships make you feel stressed out, that's a big clue that you've got something going on that's not compatible with what your subconscious wants. And so you look at those things. I've seen people who panic every month when they think about sitting down and writing checks, right? They've got beliefs about money and scarcity that are coming up. People who say a lot of times the scarcity stuff is fascinating because it's not just money, it can be time. I think we all know those people who say there's just not enough time in the day. There's actually enough time in the day. It's what are you doing with it that's making you run out. And so if you believe there's not enough time, you're going to fill your day with little diversions so that you're right. At the end of the day, you didn't get it all done. If you can pay attention to your priorities and hold tight on your boundaries and be reasonable with your expectations, there's enough time there to do the things that you need to do. There's all the resources, not enough clients, not enough money, not enough time, not enough, whatever it is you think you need. If you don't think it's there, you're not going to see it. It's not going to be there for you. You've got to change those beliefs to know that there is all the stuff there that you need. It's fascinating. You can have clients knocking on your door, and if you don't think there are enough of them, you won't hear what they're asking for, or you won't see them.
Judy, I'm sure you have a transformation story that you can share. You said, I believe, can be changed in 10 minutes. The other thing that I'm interested, if you could share a success story. I'm also interested in when you run into somebody who literally says, I want to stay broken. How dare you interfere with me? And then you may not use those words, but I bet you've seen that.
All right, let me answer that first so I don't forget what the question was. I don't work with people who don't want to change. So if they don't want to change, we're not meant to do something like that together. That's not a real problem. But back to a success story. Yeah, I've got tons of them. An interesting one, I was working with a guy who had started up his own business. And his subconscious belief was that business had to get a really slow start to be solid and steady and successful over time. He was getting ready to scrap the business and go back to corporate because it was such a slow start. And we changed that belief to businesses can be successful early on once they've been started, or that was the gist of it. And he had a significant change in events within a week of that. It's funny how the universe conspires to deliver the stuff that we expect. And those subconscious beliefs can make a very strange difference in how many people contact you or show up to help you follow the dream that you're doing. I had another woman who had a multi-level sales business, right? And all the people that she would get on her team were really nice, but not very motivated. She didn't have many, and none of them were really selling anything. And she had a belief that motivated people didn't want to work with her. And we changed that. And I think it was like 2 weeks later, she picked up 2 people that were real go-getters and were actually out there generating some business for her team. So it's interesting how you can change those things and then look at the results. Sometimes they're very fast.
What are the misconceptions in the general public about mindset that you would like to correct?
And that's an interesting question. I don't see so many misconceptions about mindset other than a lot of times people just don't realize how the beliefs impact them. They don't understand the connection between subconscious beliefs and the results they see day to day. I think a lot of times when people say they work with mindset, that can get poo-pooed by some people. It sounds like it's a little too ethereal. They want something more concrete, the tools, the strategy, the what am I doing wrong stuff. And it all goes together. You can be using all the tools correctly and putting in all the time. But if you've got subconscious beliefs that are not aligned with the goals that you're doing, you're not going to get the results that you're wanting.
Do you find that when you're engaging folks, or this model would work in other places where they have a role model or a mentor, does that have a positive spin on the outcomes?
Certainly, if you've got somebody who is doing what you want to do and doing it better than you're doing it, it's always good to see how somebody else is doing that thing. I think it's also good to have, mentors are not just providing a role model. They're encouraging They're suggesting ways, they're giving you feedback on stuff. And at the same time, I think everybody needs to be listening to themselves and understanding that their way of doing something well might not look exactly like somebody else's. So pay attention to the resonance that advice has for you, right? If it doesn't resonate with you, it's not going to be effective. There's going to be something off kilter with doing it that way that people are going to pick up on.
Judy, can you walk me through the process of aligning consciousness? How you actually identify and shift the blocks?
Sure. When I talk with people, I ask them what's going on. What would you rather be experiencing? And then once we zero in on the thing that they want for that particular topic, I use muscle testing. I don't know if you and your audience is familiar with muscle testing, but it's a way of having the body signal. In Psych K, which is the process I use, we can use it to see what's actually in the subconscious. I do the muscle testing for people because I see everybody virtually and they're not in the room with me. But and the premise of it and the actuality of it is if you say something that your subconscious does not believe, you're going to, when I muscle test for that, you're going to get a weaker response, right? For instance, I've seen a lot of people who have a subconscious belief it's not okay to have more money than you need. That's not helpful if you're trying to build a profitable business. And yet it's there and it's a real conflict with the subconscious. If they say that statement and I muscle test it and it's a weak response for the muscle testing, their subconscious does not believe it's okay to have that extra money. So we can go and install that. The change process that I use, the one that's so fast, less than 5 minutes usually, is very straightforward. And it involves getting into positions or doing gestures that help your brain get whole brain so that the right and left are engaged equally. It makes it easier to access the subconscious. And so that's what we do. I'm a former IT person. So to me, it's like writing code. It's okay, this code is not giving us the results we want. Let's change it to something that will. And so that's what we do.
Some people in the public think coaches are actually shaman. They wear this big cape and come from the 14th century. Do you find you use neuroscience very much?
That there is substantiation for the results with neuroscience of the process that I use. They've had people do different brain scans before and after a belief change, and there's a difference there. There's evidence of it. I don't dwell too much on the neuroscience aspects of it. I know that's what's going on, but it's irrelevant. The way I do things, there are results that come from it. And trying to understand current theory on why that's true doesn't seem like a good use of my time, actually. It's theories change, people learn more, you look at things and you impact the results because of just observing it. In quantum physics, you observe it and you impact and you influence the outcome, right? I don't spend a lot of time trying to understand the current scientific thinking of why what we do is working. I rely on the results and the pattern of results that I've seen.
Is there a profile that you either find that most likely will have not the wrong mindset, but not the right mindset versus one that typically they normally have it, whether it's male, female, age, cultural background? Is it new to country or been in country? They grew up in that town their entire life, and is there any kind of profile that you've seen over time that might be an indicator?
I have not. I've been asked that, not often, but I've been asked that occasionally. And I really can't say that the person that fits into this combination of categories is a lot more likely or less likely to have subconscious beliefs that are not supporting them. I can say that sometimes it's a lot longer when people are attached to their conscious story of why their life is awful. You can change the subconscious beliefs, but if there's some payback there to the story, whether it's comfort or excuse or attention or whatever it is, sometimes it can be more of a challenge to get that straightened out so that both the conscious story and the subconscious beliefs are supporting the conscious goal.
Judy, you meet a client, it goes really well. You spend a half an hour, you get through their obvious mental mindset block, you release them, you send them out. How long until they get back to you, if they do? How long till they tell you that the results are different?
That varies. Some things are immediate, particularly if we're working with a physical symptom of stress. Often, if it's like a pain related or mobility related thing, they can tell a difference immediately. A lot of times, when we call it a balance, when you rewrite a belief, a lot of times after a balance or after a session, they can tell that something has shifted. They feel lighter. Some of the people that are more in tune with their energy shifts can feel things moving with them. That's not necessary. It's not what all my clients do, but some people can tell that has happened. But other things can take time to roll out, right? Some things can go weeks, maybe, before they notice the difference. And then sometimes it changes, but they are so comfortable with the new reality, they don't even recognize the fact that it's different than what they came for. It just feels normal to them. There are some situations that are pretty clear cut. When I work with people with phobias, I've never had a phobia client take a full hour. We'll address the phobia and then we have time left over. So what else do you want to change?
Not the tire of the car or the oil?
No, I can't help with that. But yeah, I've had some interesting things. Oh, sure, if we've got time, let's do this other thing. But with the phobias, that's pretty much a one and done type of a session of people. We get rid of it. And then the next time they are confronted with whatever, getting on a plane or seeing a snake or whatever the thing is, it's all okay.
What's the most common phobia that you see that were people reaching out to you?
I think I've probably done more for flying than anything else, fear of flying. But snakes and bugs and things like that have come up.
Did you say spiders?
Yeah, spiders. I've done people with spiders, all of the critters, mice. I can't think of any other really interesting animals, or beings that have been an issue, but flying, driving over bridges, the things in cars, different aspects of being either the driver or the passenger in a car.
So when a person goes through this transformational period where the phobia is abated, is it totally gone, or is it's so pushed away from the forefront that it may not as well have ever existed? Is that the type of success that as a result that you end up seeing?
Typically, yeah. A lot of times I don't see the people again, so I never know exactly how it rolled out. But for the people that I have seen again, because they come to me for other things, I'll know they've had a trip scheduled, right? And so I'll ask them, how did the flight go? And they're like, wow, it was fine. My family couldn't believe I was calm. Or one poor woman, she was such a wreck every time she thought she had to get on a plane, and she had to fly for business. So it was like she'd dread it for 2 weeks, and it would take 2 weeks after the flight to stabilize again. And I asked her how this flight was going, how it went after we'd had a session. And she said it was the worst possible combination of events, right? The plane was late. She missed the next thing that had to happen. They had to put her on a different flight. She was in the middle between two people that were pouring over on her. It was just like it was in the back at one where all the logistical things were wrong. But she said the actual flying didn't spur it at all. She was just annoyed with all the other parts of it that weren't going well with the flight. And she was in a networking group I was in, and she was cute. Every 6 or 8 months, she would stand up and say, took another flight, still works. She would announce it to the group. So I always appreciated her being open with what we had worked on.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Judy, you have a very different business model. I understand that you meet someone, you get through the mindsets, maybe you meet once as a follow-up, and then you release them to other coaches of their lives. Live long and prosper. That's very different. Tell me more.
Okay. Yeah. In fact, frequently I serve as a resource to coaches because I don't see people month after month for the same thing, right? We change the beliefs, then that issue is gone. Now I have people that sign up for a monthly program, but it's whatever came up. It's like they're supposed to put things on their Judy list that come up during the month. And then when they come see me, we deal with whatever the priorities are that have come up since then, but it's not ongoing, the same issue month after month. I frequently serve as a resource to coaches. I'm in some coaches' packages where their clients just get a session with me, whether they want to. No, they don't come if they don't want to, but they get one with me no matter what. Other coaches refer out as needed when somebody gets stuck because I don't do the behavior, the strategy, the tools, the accountability. I focus on changing the subconscious beliefs. And frequently, people need both sets. They need the help with the what to do. I'm there to help them be able to do that successfully and not get in their own way.
Judy, are you finding that the marketplace is starting to either explore or understand the subconscious better?
I am. When I started doing this, it was in 2011. And I was met with a lot of skepticism. I didn't start the business until 2014. I learned it first just for personal reasons. But when I started the business and started networking and started telling people what I did, there were some people who were interested and others that looked for somebody else to talk to because it just sounded too weird. I've gotten a much more open response as the years have gone on of what I do and why that would be important to people. So I think they're becoming more open. I think there's been more conversation about it. They've seen more activity around it where credible people are talking about this and sharing results. So yeah, it's definitely different. It's changed over the last 10 years for sure.
I'm always gauging from this discussion that if a person has a block, it causes an anxiety, a stress. And if they have a stress, then it rolls over into the emotions and makes it flare. Not necessarily always in a positive manner, jump for joy, as opposed to go, oh, woe was I. Do you find that when folks have gone through the session, move the phobia or whatever's blocking their path, right, it's just causing the anxiety, is there a health improvement that comes out of it? Or even when they're engaging other people, like a healthy conversation, as opposed to being hangry? I understand a certain thing. It's not a phobia. It's more probably a little imbalance in the sugar levels there. But does that make them more pleasant to be around?
Absolutely. I do see some people sometimes because of the physical symptoms of stress. I think we all know stress can cause reactions in the body. I look at bodies as instrument panels, right? If it's doing something to get your attention, there's a reason for it. You need to change something so the symptom can go away again. So a lot of times people will come for physical symptoms of stress and those can be resolved. In my world, pretty much anything can be. People have different limits on what they think this can help. It's fascinating the immediacy of how you can see the impact of beliefs on physical body. The mind-body connection I'm never surprised because I've seen it too often, but it's always amazing and inspiring to see, wow, you just changed one thing and then all this other stuff got resolved. It's just like, how crazy is that? But certainly in relationships, when people come to me because a relationship isn't working to the way they want, we can't change the other person. What we can change is my client's belief system, which then results in they have different behaviors. Well, when they have different behaviors, people react to them differently. So the whole relationship changes once you change your construct, once you change the way you view other people and situations.
I know you do one-on-one. I have two questions. You have a book that is out or coming out?
Oh, it's out.
And do you do one-to-many?
Not the belief change itself, although I can do workshops where we learn about subconscious beliefs. We can explore. I've had some models, some workshops I've done where it's almost like a mastermind where we got a series of topics that are going to be included in the program. And so there'll be some group conversation to explore it and understand reactions to different pieces of it. But then for the actual belief change work itself, it needs to be individual. So we'll have a group session and then meet with everybody individually to change the beliefs that came up that were causing an issue. And then go back to the group and more conversation and go back and forth like that.
So if one of our listeners twigs that they're running their business with their 7-year-old and they want to stop that, can you think of one fix or trick where they can start the process?
Yeah, this falls into the category of what can you do at home? Because everybody wants to know, can I address this on my own instead of having to find somebody to help me? And so you start with what would you rather be experiencing? You got to define the thing you want, as hard as that might be for some people in some situations. And then what I encourage them to do is think of examples of how this looks in your life. Once it's true, start imagining as many examples as you can in real detail, like visual details. And what are you saying to yourself? And what are you hearing other people saying? And most important, what are the emotions you're feeling, right? And just immerse yourself in the example and do, you know, keep repeating that. Do it 3 examples, 4 examples, get so that you've got a really good context for what this is going to look like. I have seen that change subconscious beliefs. Sometimes the subconscious just doesn't know where you're trying to go with this, right? It doesn't really have a problem. It's just uninformed. And so giving it a little bit more information and exercising all the reactions to the situation can get you past the block.
It's interesting. You almost sound like you're describing how to talk to AI for ChatGPT or one of those platforms, right? You give it a context of what's the goal and what do you want to achieve.
That's an interesting parallel. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
I'm just sitting there going, a lot of times when I'm going to do a prompt, right? It doesn't know. Yeah, that's a good question, but hey, from what answer do you want? I can give you 5 different perspectives: the fantasy one, the pragmatic one, or the philosophical one. And all of them could be different. At the end of the day, do you find that you capitalize on any other tools, resources? Some people like to do meditation. Some people like going for a run. Some people like going to concerts or listening to music. Other people, going by even the fitness part, right? They're doing a run or they're doing something, hiking or climbing. Sometimes it's bungee cord jumping. Who knows? Do you find that any of these are add-on tools that you would recommend? And is there a component, the job of the person? Obviously, not everybody wants to go bungee cord jumping, and or can even they need some sort of outlet. Or tool, so to speak? Do you have any advice in that area?
This goes into the coaching area. And so which I don't do. I personally have things that I do for my own well-being. I can encourage people to look for things that give them what they need to balance out their experience. But in terms of doing this 3 times a day or only eat spinach on Tuesdays, I don't go there. It's just not what I do. And that's why it works so well for me to partner up with coaches, because I don't do the tools or the behaviors or the strategies. I leave that to people who have learned how to be coaches.
How do we get a hold of you?
Hey, I have a website. So you can contact me there. There's a contact page there. I'm always happy to have people sign up for a 15-minute free phone call to ask more questions. Because it might sound like it's improbable, or maybe people wonder, would it work for this issue people have all sorts of questions, or they just want to know more about how I do what I do. So the phone calls are encouraged. No obligation, just information so that people understand what I could do if they chose to book a session. If a session is usually a standalone session is an hour, and at the moment it's $250. So I'm very reasonable in terms of changing your life. for your experience. And there are other options there. There's a whole bunch of other ways people can work with me. But bottom line is you can book an individual session at $250 for an hour. The only continent I think I've not worked with somebody on is Antarctica.
Those penguins, they seem to be satisfied.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you to Judy Kane, my co-host Wayne Pratt, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. If you got a phobia, you got a block you can't get past, it's stopping you, and you've recognized it, reach out to Judy. She can help you. She won't make you do the push-ups, and she does not use shock therapy to get you around the bend. She just gets you around into the right headspace.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at infovooCreativeInsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVINSIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayneemotive8u.ca. That is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter U.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people: Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert; Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host; Jovan Strika from Our Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space; then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner; and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer: please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.